Early childhood education is a field that is constantly changing due to political, academic, and relational factors. It is the combined changes of laws, theories, and educational populations that has led to an increase in student-centered classrooms where differentiated instruction is the basis for all educational practices. Though differentiated instructions, educators can adapt the methods they utilize to understand their students as learners in order to create comprehensive learning profiles that benefit instructional practices as well as individualized learning methods. Through differentiated instruction, educators can adapt the methods they utilize to understand their students as learners in order to create comprehensive learning portfolios that benefit instructional practices as well as individualized learning methods. The Hampton Early Learning Program is a full-day, full-year preschool program for children between the ages of 2 years, 9 months, and 5 years old. Over the past several years, the increase in population in the special education program has led to a collaboration with early childhood officials and the public schools where students attend half-day programs with special education teachers and half-day programs with the Hampton Early Learning Program. Therefore, many of the classrooms are now integrated classrooms with special education classification IEPs and typical education students. Educators within the program engage in ongoing professional development that include workshops on the Connecticut Early Learning and Development Standards, the Connecticut Observation for Documentation and Teaching Systems, and professional development in the areas of health, safety, diverse cultural and educational backgrounds, and special education. Early childhood mixed age groups have a variety of developmental and academic abilities, while children with diagnosed disabilities and developmental delays have specialized IEPs to accommodate for modifications that need to be made available to increase their access to education. These accommodations often include adjustments to the environment, sensory input, and tiered activities. The integration of these diverse groups of students requires educators to be intentional and responsible in their teaching practices. Responsible teaching practices occur when students have individualized educational and developmental plans that accompany instructional strategies. The basis for curriculum content and student strategies should be individual learner needs, which means educators need to develop intentional, responsive teaching practices. Responsive teaching for this specific group of students requires educators to teach from a student-centered approach, which means modifying how students get access to important ideas and skills through the process of incorporating differentiated instruction. Once educators understand the importance and relevance of differentiated instruction, they can create comprehensive learner profiles that are explained through the creation of a portfolio that focuses on each student's learning style, developmental and academic needs, and shows progress of their learning endeavors. In order to understand a student's unique needs, educators must first understand the principles of differentiated instruction. Differentiated instruction, as defined by Carol Ann Tomlinson, is a teacher's response to learners' needs. In fact, the goal of differentiated instruction is to maximize student growth and individual success through providing strategies and modified access in the areas of content, process, and product, as well as understanding students through the lens of their learning style. The principles of differentiated instruction include flexible classroom environments, effective and ongoing assessments, flexible grouping, respective activities and learning arrangements, and student-centered collaboration. It is this combined effort where educators can utilize the learner profiles and portfolios to create a differentiated instructional environment. Before implementing curriculum and creating activities, it is important for educators to not only acknowledge different learning profiles, but for them to create learning portfolios that combine assessments, developmental progress, and academic goals. Portfolios, either paper or electronic, are created to promote and showcase student performance. It is the culmination of students' voices, goals, achievements, and skills. Although there are many types of portfolios, early childhood educators and their students would benefit from a complete developmental portfolio. A developmental portfolio looks at student progress in a multidimensional way. Assessments, students' work, and family input are combined to show progress in academic and social growth throughout the year. Through the creation of a developmental portfolio, early childhood educators can understand, individualize, and differentiate instruction and activities to benefit each student through progressive ongoing samples of work. To create a portfolio, educators need to closely examine the developmental process of the portfolio and create relevant benchmarks to set a baseline for gathering data. The complete planning and developmental portfolio document, integrated by Belgrad, Burke, and Fogarty, is a way to organize the document and understand it from a student's perspective. It is the use of a low prep strategy to begin focusing on one area of the development. For this project, we will be focusing on the Connecticut Early Learning and Developmental Standard of Physical Development and Health and Visual Motor Integration. In addition to building a portfolio with student activities and work and documentation, educators will also use the Ages and Stages questionnaire for families, a family survey, and the Connecticut DOTS observation and documentation forms. While documentation through the Connecticut DOTS observation and documentation forms are really important for the creation of the learner portfolio, it is also important to understand the family's role in education. Early childhood educators understand the positional statements of the National Association for the Education of Young Children, where they developed a position statement regarding ethical conduct and their statement of commitment. Section 2 focuses on the ideal that families play an essential role in the classroom and that there is a primary responsibility to bring communication, cooperation, and collaboration between the home and early childhood program to enhance a child's development. Therefore, the inclusion of the Ages and Stages questionnaire, the Connecticut DOTS observation and documentation forms with family input, and a family survey created by classroom teachers are essential to maintain an accurate learner profile. When designing differentiated instructional strategies, educators must look at readiness and interest, especially in creating a learner portfolio. There needs to be a baseline of data assessment to understand next steps for learning and to create individualized strategies. Readiness within differentiated instruction looks at matching activities to learners' skills and understanding of a topic, while interest refers to activities and tasks that learners find exciting and are willing to pursue further. When designing a visual motor integration pre-activity, it is important to consider young children's interest and readiness. In this case, educators designed a question of the day for children to answer as they enter the classroom. Each day, the question of the day dictates learning or interest for the topic related to stories and activities of the day. For this activity, educators asked, "Do you like beads or pom-poms?" Once children have answered the question, they will be directed to one of two activities. At one table, children will be prompted to sort half-inch pony beads. The beads, consisting of the colors red, blue, brown, and white, will be combined in a large basket. On the table, there will also be a long piece of styrofoam with red, blue, brown, and white pipe cleaners sticking up, tweezers, and sorting bowls. Children will be given the instructions to sort the beads. Each offering allows children to sort by their developmental level, utilizing their hands, fingers to pinch and pull with the forefinger to sort into bowls, or to use tweezers, which is a more refined fine motor skill. The activity will give educators a baseline for data collection and will assist them with choosing appropriate activities and products for individualizing learning. At the other table, children will be prompted to sort a variety of soft cotton pom-poms. The pom-poms, which will also be red, white, blue, or brown, will be combined in a large basket. On the table, there will also be tweezers, sorting bowls of red, white, blue, and brown, and water bottles with red, white, blue, or brown labels. Children will be given the instruction to sort beads. Again, each offering allows children to sort by their developmental level, utilizing their hands, fingers, where they're pinching with their forefinger and thumb, to push it into the water bottle, or tweezer, which is a more refined visual motor skill. In addition to this activity, providing a baseline for data collection, Educators are also able to understand the readiness level and interest level of each individual student, thus building information for the learner portfolio. We got this. The interactive aspects of an activity are designed to increase a learner's awareness of a topic or a skill. In addition, it is also important to understand learners' abilities and learning styles. Each student learns in their own way and at their own pace. Therefore, educators must design activities that appeal to individual strengths and learning styles. If educators follow the theory of multiple intelligences dictated by Howard Gardner, they can create activities that appeal to a wide variety of learners. For this activity, educators are hoping to support visual, spatial, musical, linguistic, interpersonal, and kinesthetic learners. Educators will read the story Pete the Cat, I Love My White Shoes, and they will use the felt storytelling pieces to tell the story. Children will have to match different colored shoes to the story and also to Pete the Cat on a felt board. Matching the shoes incorporates visual motor integration, while learning styles are also being appealed to. In addition, teachers will then listen to the musical story of Pete the Cat, I Love My White Shoes on semi-grain. Providing a different avenue of instruction allows educators and students to be interactive in the learning process and appeals to multiple learning styles. Reflective activities require students to practice what they have learned and to continue to hone their skills through producing a product. For this activity, children will be asked to create a shoe as seen in the story of Pete the Cat and I Love My White Shoes. The activity will support beginning, intermediate, and advanced learners in visual motor integration through differentiated instruction. All children will be asked to produce the same product, but in different ways. Children will first be prompted to create Pete's shoes from the story. Beginning learners will have the opportunity to utilize a pre-cut paper shoe piece, and then they will glue corresponding colored squares to the shoe. Colored squares may be red, blue, white, or brown to represent the shoes from the story. Intermediate learners will also utilize a pre-cut paper shoe piece, but then they will be asked to rip and glue corresponding colored squares to the shoe. This may be red, white, blue, or brown to match the story. Advanced learners will follow and cut the guided lines of a paper shoe shape, and then they will be asked to rip and glue corresponding colored squares to the shoe. Colored squares can be red, blue, white, or brown. Differentiating learning during all parts of an activity support individual learners and allow educators to gain data to access their individual skills and provides learners with an opportunity to grow in their developmental areas. In the early childhood education classroom, differentiation is vital to the success of student readiness for later learning and student engagement in a whole group setting. Therefore, educators must vary content, process, and product in order to support differentiated learning and to reach individualized goals. When differentiating content, educators must look at what is taught as well as how to give students access to what is expected of them to learn. For this activity, educators utilized visual and linguistic book variations. They had a physical book and musical YouTube video. They also used felt storyboard pieces to help retell a story and use visual motor integration skills. And educators can also vary instructional times, including small and large group sizes, capitalizing on transitional times by using whiteboards to talk about pre-writing strokes as a transitional activity. Another way educators can vary content and process and differentiation is through process. Process often consists of activities that learners are actively engaged in. Differentiated activities have a range of modes with varying time frames, allow educators to use scaffolding techniques, and require students to use essential skills and information repeatedly. In this early childhood setting, educators utilize interest centers to vary process. So in the block center, they might put out Legos and Duplos on the carpet, which require kids to match holes with pieces in order to build. In paint, they might provide paint card cutting strips so children can either rip or follow along with scissors. And in manipulatives, beads and pom-pom sorting were supplied with tweezers and pipe cleaners to differentiate each learner's abilities. Additionally, products can be varied. Products are often determined by curriculum standards, but educators can design products to match the skills and interests of their students in ways that match products to personal experiences and application to potential experiences in the outside world. In this unit, educators allowed students to create Pete the Cat paper shoe products, where they were able to either glue pre-cut pieces, they ripped them, or they cut them. Additionally, educators can implement building with popsicle sticks to design bridges, so they have to look at what they're designing and manipulate with their fine motor skills, or they can have them create collaborative group floor puzzles where they work on matching and social interaction and build products and skills that educators can put into the learner portfolio. The purpose of education is to enrich a child's life by providing them with opportunities to exhibit curiosity, creativity, self-direction, and persistence in a variety of learning situations. Through varying learning strategies, educators will gain insight into how a student learns, what their abilities consist of, and how to individualize the learning process. However, educators also need to continually develop as professionals, which includes incorporating and developing strategies for differentiation beyond the aforementioned tasks and ideas. Two strategies that I will implement that will allow myself to grow as a professional and to create a more concrete, differentiated instructional plan would be to utilize tiered activities and flexible groupings. A tiered lesson plan essentially involves 3 steps: know, understand, and do, and then writing and assessing the plan. Educators can cater learning plans and activities to accommodate beginning, intermediate, and advanced learners. And within this, they can also vary materials, instructional approaches, and timing. Additionally, flexible grouping ensures that all students have the opportunity to work in collaborative ways based on shared interest, supports, or experiences. While this approach to teaching often requires groups to work independently or with some teacher support, flexible grouping can be modified and adjusted to work with preschool-age children. Educators can write grouping sizes in a location accessible to teachers during small group instructional times, and then utilize their developmental, academic, and social levels to group students in ways that benefit the group. And then educators can walk around the groups and insert themselves where students need support through scaffolding. One idea for the Hampton Early Learning Program would be to use flexible grouping during STEM activities. Here, students are divided into small groups to complete activities in the areas of science, technology, engineering, or math. As students are grouped in flexible groupings, educators can scaffold and support individual learning goals during this time to create a differentiated instructional plan. It is essential to understand that learning techniques and childhood research are constantly changing and evolving. As educators, it is equally important to understand that as theories and research evolve and develop, educators must also evolve and develop new goals and techniques that enhance their skills, which provide growth and development within the classroom setting. Setting professional and educational goals will provide educators with a foundation for supporting students through differentiated instruction. Future goals and resources for myself as an educator include ongoing research and acquisition of professional resources in the fields of differentiated instruction, utilizing graphic organizers such as the tiered activity worksheet, and connecting myself with professionals in the fields of education for professional development and research. In order to connect with continuous research and resources, educators must create a hybrid of research resources that include online and in-person supports. One online support is Edutopia. Edutopia is a resource for K-12 educators that combines research and strategies that educators can use within their classrooms. Specifically, the Differentiated Resource Roundup is a collection of 7 categories of supports for educators. It provides resource, strategies, links to workshops, and examples for educators to use. By looking up this website and gaining more research and then utilizing strategies, I can start with low prep and then move to high prep differentiated activities to create a more dynamic learning environment for my students. Additionally, professional development is really essential to educators. In fact, it is required by most educational institutions. And engaging in constant professional development has led to increases in student achievement, the utilization of effective teaching techniques, and higher organizational and planning skills for educators. Within the state of Connecticut, there is the State Education Resource Center. They provide workshops and resources for educators across the state. Attending workshops that are related to the field of differentiation would allow myself to connect to educators with like-minded interest and would allow me to grow as a professional. And finally, a very low prep but important strategy to create a future goal would be to utilize graphic organizers. This is a tool that I utilize a lot with my students in my classroom. I use KWL charts, Venn diagrams, and anchor charts to help them learn. Additionally, using a graphic organizer for myself would allow me to create more comprehensive and dynamic lesson plans. The tiered activity workshop, first presented through the post-university class EDU 605, would allow me to at least differentiate one activity per day. I can cater the activity to early learning and developmental standards, along with observation methods, and focus on beginning, intermediate, and advanced learners, which will lead to more differentiation within the classroom. The creation of a comprehensive learner portfolio will increase educators' understandings of individual students, as well as support differentiated instruction in the areas of teaching strategies and activities. Educators can understand a differentiated instruction. Differentiated instruction is an educational philosophy and implementation method that looks at content, process, and product using varying avenues of instruction for a wide variety of learners. It is student-centered learning that blends individual, whole group, and small group activities and plans. Understanding the importance of differentiation leads to more comprehensive learning activities, which supports student growth and goals. Additionally, creating a comprehensive learner portfolio is really important to families, educators, and students. The portfolio is a creation of a student's work, so that includes documentation, products, and family resources. These items can be combined to create individualized learning strategies that help grow students academically, socially, emotionally, and cognitively. Finally, varying content, process, and product to create multiple forms of documentation and teaching practices is essential to support students. Following all of these guidelines in the aforementioned activities and practices and creating future goals for myself will create a more diverse, dynamic, academic profile of a learning classroom and will incorporate more differentiated instruction, which is an essential piece of the growing, changing world of education.